Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for having me. I'm here this morning to have a little chat with you about considering a career in forestry. And what I'm going to start with is to say there's never been a better time to consider forestry because Scotland's woodland cover is increasing from the current percentage. We're about 19% woodland cover in Scotland, and that is increasing to 23% by 2032. And this is through ambitious planting targets by the Scottish Government to tackle climate change, to provide sustainable jobs and to support the Scottish economy. Scotland's forestry sector is worth about £1 billion annually and employs about 25,000 people. Now, with increased planting and more woodlands, those numbers and that contribution to the economy, those employed numbers, this is all going to increase and grow like the trees and the woodlands. And forestry is a real, it's a long-term industry. It's a green industry centred around a sustainable, renewable resource, which is timber. And foresters really do need to think to the future, because the trees that are being planted today, they're going to be growing for the next 25, 50, 100 years. And we need to manage those trees. And we need to think about what are the objectives that those trees are going to be fulfilling. This afternoon, even in the Scottish Parliament, there is a debate about forestry's contribution to net zero. Scotland's aim is to get to net zero by 2045, and trees play an integral part of that mission. Forestry's got an ageing workforce. We need to attract more people, a diverse range of people into this profession. And I've certainly come across young people who are talking about eco-anxiety and about concern for the climate emergency, and they're interested in the natural world. And I think this is where we have to start the conversation about, have you considered forestry? It is the green, it's a green industry, and it can offer a really different, unusual and rewarding career. Just on, here we go. I'll give you a little introduction to myself now. I work for Scottish Forestry. I don't know if you have heard of Scottish Forestry. I think you probably know Forestry Commission. So we used to be called Forestry Commission, and in about April 2019 we changed to Scottish Forestry and Forestry and Land Scotland. Scottish Forestry is the Scottish Government agency responsible for policy and support and regulation. And Forestry and Land Scotland you may be more aware of because they're the land managers. They manage the National Forest estate. So you may have gone and been on a mountain bike trail or a walking trail or been bird watching. But it's absolutely fine if you still call us the Forestry Commission. We were known as that for about 100 years, so it's going to take a bit longer than 3 years to change the name over. So I have worked in forestry for about 15 years now in South and Central Scotland mainly. I'm a career changer. I won't go into that right now. You might want to ask me about that at the end. And I've worked in very operational forestry roles such as a planning manager, a recreation forester, a work supervisor. The photo that was taken that's in this slide, some of you, the eagle-eyed among you might be thinking, there's not very many trees in that picture in the background there, it's just an open hillside. That was when I was a woodland officer, and that job was right on the front line of increasing woodland cover. So working with landowners and forestry agents and using the forestry grant scheme, which enables people to plant trees, increase woodland cover. A couple of years ago, I changed to the Forest Industries Advisor position, and I have two parts of this job. One of them is to come along to things like this, talk about forestry, help demystify forestry for anybody who doesn't know what the industry is about. And I also support small businesses. So a project I'm working on at the moment is with the Scottish Furniture Makers Association, and we're looking at the tree disease ash dieback and trees that are having to be felled for that, and we're making furniture out of it, and we're going to have a big exhibition. So I've got really quite an unusual mix, which is quite exciting. I'm now going to, we're going to move on through a quick look through quite a few slides, and we're going to look at the whole forest industry and the huge wide range of jobs that are available. And you're going to have to just bear with me. I do have a cold, so I might have to have a drink of water and clear my throat. So we start right at the very beginning. Nurseries, the ones for trees, not for children. So for all this increased planting, all this new woodland, we need the trees to start with. And so we've got a picture there of people collecting conifer cone, the seeds that are coming from them. The bottom picture is out in a nursery. That's, I mean, that millions of oak trees there that are about maybe 2 years old. And, you know, there's a wide range of jobs within nurseries, and that is the very starting point, really, for the whole forestry sector. We move on into forest management. And this is the part where you've got your trees and you now need to establish a woodland. So we've got one side, we've got a guy looking at a map there, and that would be a planning forester. So they're the ones looking at the ground, looking at the landscape, saying what is being grown here, or if there's an existing forest that's being felled for timber, you know, then the replacement of that, are the objectives still the same as they were 50 years ago? What do we want on this site? We've got our tree planter there. I would say it's a very easy site to get across. That looks like that's a new woodland planting site. It's a field that has now got trees on it. That's a really hard job. It's a very physical job, and you're out in the winter. The tree planting season runs from October through to end of April into May, depending on the weather. So this area is about the establishing of that woodland and enabling the woodland to thrive. Throughout, you'll see the term forester. So it could be forester, planning forester, or another area. This is somebody who has studied forestry and then is specialising, or you could just be a forester covering all aspects of forestry in your area. Moving on into recreation and social forestry. These are the ones I think most people have interacted with woodlands and forests, you know, going for a mountain bike ride, horse riding, maybe a litter pick in their local urban woodland. And all of these facilities need managing, and there's also events that might happen as well that, you know, come to a local forest. So this is a huge area of employment. And we've also got in the corner some children there, all enjoying, I think, a hot chocolate by the look of it, and they've been out at a forest school, so that's about outdoor woodland learning. And so we have a whole range of forest school practitioners that can deliver, you know, the entire curriculum, education curriculum, out in a wood. Here we are with environment and biodiversity. Again, this all goes hand in hand. Our woodlands are home to many protected species, and all of this needs to be looked after. We've also got renewables as well. Forests play a huge part in also hosting wind turbines. So we've got that side, and also peatland restoration. I've put that in. That sits side by side with forestry. Peatland acts as a huge sink for carbon. So if we have peatlands in a good condition, they can be holding on to a lot of carbon. So with tree planting, also for mitigating climate change, we've also got peatland restoration. Years ago, there were a lot of tree planting happening on peatland. We are no longer allowed to plant on deep peat, and it's about restoring peatland to its previous state. And we'll keep going. This is a huge, quick zip through. Harvesting and processing. This is where we're getting into the nitty-gritty now of commercial forestry, bringing that timber that has been growing back out to the sawmills. The jobs there, you know, they are very hands-on. You can be in a machine, long hours. We're talking engineering, we're talking STEM subjects at school. And there are misconceptions. I've got a picture up at the top there of a female chainsaw operator. I think sometimes we just think of bearded men in a check shirt on a chainsaw, but you know, foresters come in all shapes and sizes. And certainly this side of the business, I've spoken about engineering, technology. We have a mill there, and what we are now having is that the mill can be assessing what products, what timber products they are needing, what orders are coming in. They can be talking, the computers, you know, it's not even a person on a phone, computers talking back to the machinery out on site, requesting particular products to be cut out on site. We need to move that timber from the forest, and we need to get it out to the mills and to the processing centres. So we have a huge forest road network across Scotland, and we need civil engineers to manage this, to plan the roads, put in bridges, and even construct things such as floating roads where you're going over those peat bogs. They're always quite exciting to be on. And also the timber lorry drivers. I think haulage drivers are in short supply across all industries. And certainly if somebody is interested in that, I would be highlighting that forestry, it isn't just about driving from one supermarket to a depot on tarmac roads. This is also taking a HGV onto forest roads and getting out and loading timber. So if somebody's wanting a bit more excitement in their day job, that could be one to consider. We've also got designers, the wood users, end users of wood. We've got furniture makers, construction engineers and architects. The more timber we get into construction, the more CO2 we are locking up into our buildings. And timber is a resource that can be used for all sorts of engineering opportunities. And then the science really behind forestry. We have a whole sector called forest research, which works with the science of trees, tree growing, strength of timber. We have scientists, we have soil scientists, we have social scientists. They're looking at the behaviour of people in woodlands. We've got all the mapping associated with climate effects, things like pests and diseases. They are becoming more prevalent with the warmer, wetter winters. And you know, and pests and diseases are causing a massive impact to forestry, and we need to keep our learning up to date about that. And also timber production forecasting. We need to know how much volume of timber we have in our woodlands. So this is a huge range of jobs all associated with forestry that are not just forester. However, moving on, if you are interested in forestry, you could go and study it. I have a HND in forestry, and I studied at the University of Cumbria, which was the National School of Forestry. That was near Penrith at that time. There aren't that very many places to study forestry. As you can see, I've included the whole of the UK instead of just Scotland, but certainly in Scotland you've got UHI up in Inverness or SRUC. I've also included the more rural skills, so it's more the SQF levels 4 and 5 as a way into forestry that you may want to consider. It's also worth noting at this point there are also modern apprenticeships, and they are based, UHI I think have them, possibly SRUC, but also Forestry and Land Scotland, and I believe the next tranche of apprenticeships will be coming out in 2023, so that's worth looking out for. And this is just my last slide, looking at the subjects you may want to consider at school or at university. Those are the key subjects: maths, English, technology, geography, any of the sciences. That's all really useful in forestry. However, I would also say for career changers who may not have some of those, it's still worth coming to talk to somebody in forestry, because there are a huge raft of transferable skills that can be brought into our industry. Skills, of course, we all need the teamwork, time management, communication, but I've also pulled out some very specific ones there. So map reading, learning to drive if you can, and also get outside, experience the weather, find out what it's like to be, out in the sunshine, in the rain. And also it's the make a packed lunch. First rule of forestry, which I was told on my very first day, was never get separated from your packed lunch. And then there's also the opportunities. Take up opportunities such as doing an achievement award, such as the Duke of Edinburgh or a John Muir Award, or Scottish Forestry launched the Scottish Junior Forester Award back in May, and that's run through the John Muir Trust.